a mere 8 feet from us is the largest predator in Africa. The male lion. There's not one, but 3. This is Safari Live. And look at this, isn't this absolutely glorious? Last week we only got to meet one of the Brimingham Boys, and on this live safari now we get to meet 3 of the dominant male lions in our little corner of the greater Kruger National Park, an 8.5 million acre wilderness wonderland. And look at this, isn't this absolutely glorious? Last week we only got to meet one of the Brimingham Boys, and on this live safari now we get to meet 3 of the dominant male lions in our little corner of the greater Kruger National Park, an 8.5 million acre wilderness wonderland that we get to call home. Now, my name is Brent Smith. I have my very good friend on camera, Brian Joubert, and we are the Killer Bees. And that means we hope to find you the best and most killer sightings. But also, Brian is helped ably by his very hard-working thumb, who got a bit confused this morning and put on a leopard print tie, and he probably should have put on a lion mane. Of course, this is live, so we never know what we're going to find out here. And lucky enough, we're with the beautiful Brimingham Boys, and Jamie is with those incredible leopards. Isn't this just too amazing? Now, this is coming to you at the exact same time as we are seeing it. This is live from South Africa. And remember, if you want to ask us any questions, hashtag Safari Live. I would love to hear from you. So please send those questions through. Now, if you have been watching for the past, 4 weeks now, we're in the middle of your 8-week weekly dose of live African wildlife. We've only seen one of the Brimingham Boys, and that's the one who's in frame at the moment. His name is Mfumo, which means the authority. And you can see he's got quite a nasty scar on his schnoz. And that is probably from fighting with one of his other coalition members, or from attempting to be amorous with a lioness who wasn't so amorous back. And that's what happened last week. And there, the next lion along there is called Tinyo, the tooth. And you can just see a scar on the top of his cheek there. And that was definitely from a lioness who wasn't feeling that amorous. And she split his lip, and you can see his tooth when he's sitting up. And then the third lion, which is quite exciting for me, is not one I get to see too often. And it looks like it is Nena. Nena means the warrior. So there's one missing. His name is Mtsogo, and that means gold. He's got a very golden mane. Now, these 3 lions control a massive part of this part of the world. They control about 20,000 acres, 3 different prides. Now, Chelsea's asked a very important question, because as you would have noticed, I am sitting incredibly close to these massive male lions. Chelsea would like to know, what is the limit to how close we go to the big cats? Now, Chelsea, these big cats have grown up with safari vehicles, so they are habituated. They don't see us human beings sitting in there. But this is about my limit. I'm never going to push further than that. But the wonderful thing about being out here is that the lions don't have any limits. So sometimes I've had them walking right here, that I could actually almost touch them if I wanted to. And if the animals choose to come close to us, we let them. We don't force ourselves into their space. Now, of course, you've met James, you've met Jamie, and you've met me and Brian. But there's one more person you need to meet, and he's probably the bravest of us all, because he's out here where all these incredible creatures live, except he's on foot. Let's go meet Steph. Well, they've got up as the sun has peaked over the eastern horizon, and a little bit of greeting going on there between, who's that, Nena, and is that Mfumo or Tinyo? I think Mfumo. Nice to see the boys all together. It's not often we get to see this many together, so it is always great when we do. And, oh, there we go. I don't think they're going to move too much today. I think they've all shared the buffalo Nena caught yesterday. It's not too far from here, but the Brimingham Boys often will abandon a carcass. Oh, bless you. we're going to move around so we can have a look at their faces. Are we behind us there, Brian? Okay, let's get round. Here's what we can call a lump of lions with their fat bellies. Happy, Brian? Okay. I said I don't think they're going to move too much this morning. We might go have a look at the carcass just now. And what's left, I think they've abandoned quite a lot of meat there. So who knows, there could be hyena, there could be vultures, or I'm sure they're vultures. Welcome back, everyone, and we're back with the lions at the Brimingham Boys. There are 3 of them here, and of course you're on your very own privately guided live African safari. You'll see behind me there is a safari vehicle. There are other people enjoying the sighting with us, but we've got these 3 wonderful big males. They're not being too entertaining at the moment. They're doing what male lions do quite often, and that's snooze. And they're snoozing because they've got bellies full of buffalo. And these boys are actually very successful hunters. There's that big misnomer that the male lions don't do any hunting, but because they maintain such a massive area, around 20,000 acres, they have to do quite a lot of their own hunting. They control 3, oh bless you, I think that was a hairball. And a lion hairball is a vile thing full of bone and blood and rotting meat and of course hair. Now, Leslie's wondering, why do male lions hang out in packs? Well, Leslie, it's very, very important in this area, especially. You normally never find single lions or even 2 lions together. Most of the time we have big male lion coalitions, and there's a very important reason for this. This is one of the highest densities of lions in Africa. So if you're a single male by yourself, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to control a big area and make sure you can mate with lots of females and pass on your genetic material. So quite often, a lot of these coalitions will be related, but not always. Normally, when they're about 2.5 years old, male lions are pushed from the pride, and they become what we call dispersal males or nomadic males. And often they will meet up with other nomadic or dispersal males in that time, and they form coalitions. And if you're in a coalition, you're able to control a much larger area. You're also able to control an area for much longer. So if there's one of you, the chances are you're going to get beaten up and bullied by a group. So when there's a group of you, you can control a bigger area, more females, more rights to mating, and so it makes sense for these lions to join forces. Now, sometimes there are different ages in the coalition. Here we look at they're all about the same age, about 6 years old. Or between 6 and 7, I'd say now. So this is a male lion's prime. He is at the top of his game here. They don't really have a lot of time at the top, only generally 3 or 4 years, sometimes 5 in a big coalition. Now, the reason for this is they only really sire 1 set of cubs from a pride. Now, and that being so, if they stayed for too long, the females that they've sired, so their daughters would start becoming to 3, 4 years old, coming into estrus, and they'd start mating with them. And so the reason male lions generally don't last too long is so the genetics don't get overcomplicated. Inbreeding in big cats is not nearly as a big issue as it is in human beings, but generally you don't want them to inbreed more than 3 or 4 generations. But out in the wild, the way the animals are pushed, it stops that inbreeding altogether. This lovely light filtering through the clouds. Now, Jim is wondering where these lions have recently fed. Indeed, they have, and that's probably why they're so lazy, Jim. So a big male lion with a full belly will often sleep around 20 hours a day. They killed a buffalo yesterday, and I'm not sure how much meat they left there, but we'll go have a look, because I don't think these lions are going to move too far. So sometime during the next couple of hours, we're going to go and check on that buffalo carcass. Now, we're going to sit here for a little bit longer, make sure these lions don't get up to anything while we do that. And we're going to go from the biggest and one of the smelliest animals in the African bush to one of the most delicately and lightly scaled animals in the African bush.
The lions with Brent, they're lying under a bush, as you can see. Now, lions are extremely good at a few things, but the thing that they are very, very best at in all the world is nothing. They like to sit on the ground doing very little, and that's what they're doing now. Now we're going to head off towards Brent Leo Smith across this very verdant landscape where we've had lots of rain. In fact, in the last 4 weeks, since you joined us on these live safaris, we've had a huge amount of rain, and everything's got greener and thicker. Now, you can probably just see Brent there. I think that's him in the top right-hand side of your screen. Is it? No, it isn't. It might, in fact, be a bush. There he is. There he is now. And he's sitting with something relatively distasteful. Let's go and find out what that distasteful thing is.
Well, maybe I should get some of that medicine root after playing around near a semi-rotting buffalo carcass. As you can see, we're back with the wonderful Brimingham Boys. My name is Brent Leo Smith, and you're on a live African safari. And, well, you can see there's 2 massive male lions weighing around 400 pounds just over my left shoulder. So there's another male lion lying behind us. As I said, I don't think they're going to get up to too much, but you never know. Because it's live, you've got to come check it out. Another lion might wander in, a buffalo might wander in, they might get chased by an elephant. So it always pays to play the patience game out in the African bush. Now, while they're lying so close to us, it does give us a unique opportunity to have a look at their faces in quite some detail. And if we have a look at all the scars, so there's Tinyo, the tooth, and you can actually see that wound where he's got the split lip that gave him his name, and that has taken a long time to heal. And that quite often happens with lions because they are constantly in the wars, and they are the biggest, baddest guys in the area. So if any other males happen to wander in, they would see them off. But they also spend a lot of time fighting amongst each other for the right to mate with females. Now you can see his nose. Now, there's a lot of different theories about how to age a lion, and when he's got a pink nose, he's supposed to be under 6 years old, and when he's got a fully black nose, he's supposed to be over. But in my experience, it all just depends on the lion. You can see he's got a dappled nose, and he's breathing quite heavily, and that's quite common if he's got a nice big belly full of buffalo as he's digesting. Now, as you can see, as he slumbers so effectively, Victoria, who's 10 years old, welcome on the safari, Victoria, is wondering, how long do lions sleep normally? Now, Victoria, on average, they probably sleep for about 20 hours a day. So if you like napping, you definitely want to be a lion. Now, the reason they sleep for so long is that they do have trouble getting rid of heat. And that's also why they're mostly nocturnal, and they move around when it's cool and in the night, in the early morning and late afternoon. And when they've got a full belly, they can sleep for even longer. Now, even though this lion is fast asleep and not moving, if there's a sound or if a rival male lion called to the north of us, these 3 boys would be up in a flash and could probably cover 10 to 15 miles in less than an hour. So they can move very quickly when they need to, especially when their territory is being threatened by a marauding male. Now, there are other males that surround them, but at the moment, no one would dare challenge the 4 Birmingham Boys. They are really, really well set as sort of the kings of this part of the world at the moment. Now, the incredible thing is we've been watching these lions for over 2 years now. Oh, you can see there's a nice scratch scar in the middle of his back. So male lion's always full of scars. And not too far from where we're sitting, actually almost exactly where Jamie is sitting with those leopards, about, I think it was October 2015, is where they really made their play to take over. There were 2 big males here called the Matimba males, and those boys used to dominate over the prides in this area. And then these 5 rapscallions, these youngsters, came in, and initially they sort of sneak around, but eventually they started roaring and stating their presence. It took about a month and a half of 2 months for them to actually truly push the older males out of the area and take over. And it's a really, really difficult time for lion dynamics in the area, because these guys will often kill cubs, kill lionesses, they're fighting with males, their testosterone's up. But it's a fascinating thing to watch, and we were lucky enough to witness quite a few interactions between them. And as I said, exactly where Jamie is with those leopards was the first time, I think you were with me, Brian, that we actually saw them fight and chase each other up and down. Now, speaking about where the lions were fighting and roaring and chasing each other up and down, let's go back there, but there are no lions there, only leopards. Well, we've got back to the lions after our meandering, and Mr. Tinyo is looking very uncomfortable as the African day heats up. Now, his other 2 coalition members have moved into a thicket, and I'm hoping he's going to do the same. Now, we've had so many questions, so many tweets. It's been absolutely incredible being able to interact with you. So we're going to try to do a little quick fire round of lots of questions. Now, there we go. Zachary is wondering, how big is a lion's territory? Now, Zachary, it all depends on the size of the coalition. A coalition of 4 males like this, they have a territory of about 20,000 hectares, 20,000 acres, about 10,000 hectares. And there we go. And I was really hoping today that these boys would give us a roaring start, or even hopefully a roaring send-off, but unfortunately they haven't. And Dara is wondering, how many miles does a lion's roar carry? For the human ear, you can hear it for about 6-7 miles, but if you're a lion, you can probably hear it at over 10 miles, 10 to 15 miles, and it is incredible how that deep rumble rolls through the African bush. And I'm going to give you a little rendition of that a little later. Now, being a group of males, it's always very interesting, because there's social dynamics. And Sid's wondering, is there a hierarchy amongst the males? Indeed, there is, Sid, but it is not a constant hierarchy. It changes. So depending on who's eaten the best, who's been in the fight the most recent. But normally, from our interactions and what we've seen, Mfumo, who's named the authority, seems to be the most dominant out of these 4 lions. But as I said, he might get an injured foot. So Tinyo, the tooth, who we're looking at now, he might become dominant for a while, and so might Nena and Mtsuku. So it's a constant rolling change of hierarchy and social standing. Oh, he's looking so uncomfortable. And look at that, he's giving himself a little bit of a clean. Lions are quite filthy creatures. Now, Daisy's wondering, if the male lions have a dominant male, do the lionesses also have a dominant female? Not really. So with lionesses, it's a little bit different. There seems to be far more of a democratic society amongst the ladies. And generally, again, with the dominance, it depends on who's the most hungry. Then you see who's the most aggressive around a kill or carcass. But it completely depends. But there's no real standout dominant female when it comes to the ladies. Whereas with the males, there's always one who's dominant, but it's always changing. Oh, look at him. He's so hot now. The sun's just burst through the clouds. And it's probably about 85 already, and it's not even 8 a.m. in the morning here in Africa. And, well, I've loved answering all your questions, but we've got one last one about the lions from Anna, who's 13 years old. Wonderful to have you with us, Anna. Anna wants to know, why does a male lion have that massive mane? Now, Anna, as I said, it's tough at the top for a male lion. They're constantly fighting, not only amongst each other, but to defend against lions from neighboring areas that might want to try take their ladies, take their territory. So that big mane serves a couple of purposes. So the bigger the mane, the more impressive the male, the more scary he looks. So sometimes male lions will rely on intimidation, roaring, and the size of their manes to see off an intruder. But if it does get serious and they do need to get into a fight, the big thick hair around their neck provides some really nice protection, especially for their throat. And so it's a really good protective layer if they do get into a fight, because when male lions fight, they attack each other head on, and their instinct is to go for the throat, to get that kill, or for the back of the head and at the back of the neck and head, which is another vulnerable area. Now, thanks very much for your questions. Oh, Mr. Tinyo's looking tired, and I did say I was going to give you a quick rendition of a male lion's roar, but I'm going to say it as we say a goodbye from the Killer Bees, and we are going to go across to Jamie shortly, but as we do that, we're going to do what a lion does. So we're going to say goodbye. 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 And join us next week, Sunday, for your next dose of live African wildlife. Without further ado, over to the leopards.